Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the September 2017 Tiger Bay meeting. Welcome to everybody. I'm glad to see everybody here. I hope everybody weathered the storm as good as could have been possible. If you would all go ahead and silence your cell phones and then join me in saying the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Before we get started on the program, I'd like to ask everybody to join me in a moment of silence for those who have lost their lives and homes because of Irma and Harvey, both here and abroad. As we do that, I also want to say thank you to everyone, the first responders, police, fire, EMS, and countless others, power workers, school administrators and staffs, city and county workers, and everyday citizens, friends, and neighbors who prepared for Irma, ran the shelters, kept order when chaos tried to take over, and have come from near and far to help with the cleanup and the difficult process of getting Manatee County and the rest of Florida back to normal operations. So if you can join me, please. Thank you. And I apologize, I forgot to mention Maria, which is now, I apologize, tearing through the Caribbean and just with devastating force. Ma'am?
Mexico also.
Yes, and Mexico was also hit. I just also remember that there are still people suffering from these storms. Please consider donating to charities or relief organizations to help those that have been affected. Today's program is not our traditional point-counterpoint. It's more informational, but it's on a very, very important topic. It seems a rare day now that we don't read about an overdose in Manatee County, either on the front page or the obituary page. The opioid heroin problem is challenging our community in dramatic and previously unthinkable ways. But what effect is this epidemic having on our youngest members of society? Children are being orphaned, and the foster system is struggling to keep pace. Schools and social organizations are fighting every day to prevent kids from taking that first step towards addiction. Where are we with this problem? How do we get a handle on it? What can we do to protect our most vulnerable, our children, from the ravages of drug use and drug abuse? We have a fantastic panel today that is going to talk about this problem from all different angles. Our first speaker is going to be Sheriff Rick Wells from Manatee County Sheriff's Office. Our next speaker is going to be Brena Slater she's the Vice President of Community-Based Care, Sarasota YMCA, and the Safe Children Coalition. Third, we're going to hear from Becky Canese, Chief Executive Officer of Just for Girls. And our final speakers will be Danielle, Aleck, and Abby McCrum, if I said that correctly. Our first speaker, Sheriff Rick Wells. Sheriff Wells was sworn in as Sheriff of Manatee County January 3rd, 2017. Sheriff Wells was Palmetto Police Department's police chief from 2010 to 2015, and also spent 21 years at the Florida Highway Patrol, where he was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and where we met many years ago. Accumulatively, Sheriff Wells has spent over 31 years in law enforcement. Sheriff Wells was born in Tampa, Florida, moving to Manatee County in 1978. He graduated from Manatee High School in 1982, attended Manatee Junior College, and has his Associate of Science degree in Criminal Justice Administration from Columbia Southern University. He is also a graduate of St. Leo University Command Officer Management Program. Sheriff Wells was named the Manatee County Law Enforcement Officer of the Year in 1991, received the Manatee County Whyte Knutson Award in 1991, Unidos Now Visionary Award in 2012, the NAACP Humanitarian Award in 2014, and the Edgar H. Price Jr. Humanitarian Award in 2016. Sheriff Wells has taught law enforcement to governmental, educational, and community organizations throughout Florida. He is currently the Executive Director of the Manatee County Police League, Chairperson of the Manatee County Law Enforcement Council, Law Enforcement Advisory Board Council for the Manatee Technical College, Board Member of the North Manatee Kiwanis, Replay Advisory Council, and Strength in Action. Sheriff Wells has served with the Boy Scouts of America, Keep Manatee Beautiful, Manatee Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, and North Manatee Storm Football. Sheriff Wells is married to Lupita Wells and has 3 sons. They currently reside in Manatee County. Please welcome Sheriff Rick Wells.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. When I hear all that, I start to realize how old I'm getting. You know, I think that entire bio took up my 7 minutes, so I'm just going to sit down now. So let's get to the point. First, I appreciate having the opportunity always to come here and to speak to you, because it's good to keep our community informed on what's going on. I want to take you back to about 2010, when on the law enforcement side, we began to notice the issue with opioids, the pill mills. I think you all recall the huge problem that the state of Florida had. We had prescriptions that were being filled out for absolutely no reason. People coming here from all over the country because of their addiction to Oxycontin or Roxy or any type of opioid. That's when we started to notice the impact that these drugs were having in our community in regards to our children. So I'll take you to 2010. That year, we had to shelter 281 children. Now, 99 of those kids were victims of some type of substance abuse in their family. And we know that 77 of those children were involved with a family that were addicted to prescription drugs. So 2011, it even got worse. We had to shelter 350 children. 221 were drug-related, and 141 of those were opioid-related. 253 in 2012, 72 of those were opioid-related. 2013 is when we really started to crack down on the pill mills. You saw us team up with the Florida Attorney General. Pam Bondi was big on getting the legislation passed that we needed to try to control that. So we saw a decrease in the number of cases that we had. 179 children were sheltered that year in 2013, and 54 of those were opioid related. 2014 was really the transitional year. So that's when we started to see the first signs of heroin in our community. And I want to take you back to the fight against the pill mills. When you shut down those pill mills, we did so. We were successful, but we were not successful in having any type of plan in place to help those that were suffering with that addiction. So we left them out there searching and starving for something to take the place of opioids. Heroin was what they needed. Heroin filled that void. It was cheaper. It was easy for them to get, and it quickly became a serious epidemic. So in 2014, because of the heroin epidemic, we had 387 children that were sheltered, and 51 of those were because of heroin. We knew then that we had a serious problem. This heroin was coming out of China. It was pure. It would work its way through Canada and Mexico. It was easy to get, and we knew we had a struggle on our hand. We had to fight. 2015 is when we really saw a major issue with 652 children that were sheltered. 385 of those children were sheltered because of drug abuse from a family member, and 51 of those we know were heroin related. 513 in 2016, 86 of those were heroin related. And up to this point in 2017, we had 313 children. 164 of those are substance abuse related. So we have a huge problem with parents, caregivers, family members that are addicted to heroin. As you remember, I'm sure you've all heard that heroin today is not our biggest issue. It's fentanyl. It's that painkiller that drug dealers began to use to substitute heroin. In the beginning, they would take the fentanyl and they would cut it with the heroin. That was a cost savings for them. They earned more money per kilo off of heroin. They cut it up. What they found was that their buyers, those that were addicted, they wanted the fentanyl more than they wanted the heroin because it gave them the high that they were searching for. The only problem was that high was killing them because it's 100 times more powerful than morphine. Then we start seeing carfentanil, a large animal tranquilizer. You use it to take down elephants. 10,000 times more powerful than morphine. The body can't handle it. People started to die as a result of these overdoses, and we found ourselves once again trying to do what we could to get this poison off of our streets. Just to give you some comparisons. In 2015, there were 780 overdoses that were related to heroin, fentanyl, carfentanil, and opioids. 84 people died that year because of this poison. 2016, over 1,200 people overdosed from heroin, fentanyl, carfentanil. 124 of them died. 2017, as we stand here today, we've had 79 people that have died as a result of heroin, fentanyl overdoses. The only good news I can give you is that we have really challenged our narcotic detectives, and we have partnered with drug administration detectives. We have partnered with U.S. attorneys. We have partnered with our violent crimes task force to try to take these drug dealers off the streets. And I will tell you this, and I always preface this, we are not going to arrest our way out of this epidemic. We are not looking to arrest those that are addicted to heroin. We want to help them as much as we can. We're looking for traffickers. We're looking for those that are out here in our communities making a profit off of the deaths of others. And that's what they're doing. They're killing people. They know they're killing people, but they want the money associated with this drug. Is that my 7 minutes? Okay. All right. So I'm going to finish up because Matt's an attorney and they can do things to you. So let me say this. When we remove kids from their home, we have to go to Brena. We have to go to the Safe Children's Coalition. We have to help these kids as much as we can. It has been stressful, to say the least. It has been a huge issue for us to put these children in a safe environment. We have overloaded our foster care system. We have really done everything that we can to put them in a safe environment and to help them. And I'm going to let Brena talk about what she has done as we partner together. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Sheriff. So that gives us an idea of the statistics and what's going on in the community. Now, Ms. Slater is going to come up and talk about what the Safe Children Coalition is doing to try and get these children in a safe place while their parents, their guardians are getting the help, hopefully, that they need. Ms. Slater is the Vice President of the Sarasota YMCA Safe Children Coalition and has been working in the child welfare system of care for over 25 years. She has been in her current role for over 4 years, having the responsibility over all child welfare services in Sarasota, Manatee, and DeSoto counties, including protective services, foster care, and adoptions. Brena worked at the Department of Children and Family for over 15 years in multiple roles of case manager, child protective investigator, supervisor, operations program administrator, Circuit 12 operations manager, and community development administrator. She started an innovative diversion and prevention program in Hillsborough County and has worked with multiple community partners to ensure services were provided to the children and families served. Brena is a board member for the Suncoast Region Managing Entity Central Florida Behavioral Health Network. Florida Children's Coalition co-chairs the statewide Systems Operations Committee, First Step of Sarasota, Drug-Free Manatee, and multiple community alliances and task forces. She has received numerous awards, including the statewide One Person Can Make the Difference, Community Partner of the Year, and most recently, the Child Welfare Excellence Award. Please join me in welcoming Brena Slater.
Hi, thank you very much. So as Matt said, my name is Brena Slater, and I'm the Vice President of the Sarasota YMCA Safe Children Coalition. And in Manatee County and Sarasota and DeSoto, we are the judicial circuit, the 12th judicial circuit. So we perform the services in all 3 counties. We provide foster care for all the children once the sheriff's office, or in Sarasota and DeSoto, it's the Department of Children and Families, remove the children. We actually place them in either foster care or, and if they have a relative or non-relative, the sheriff's office or Department of Children and Family will place them with a relative or non-relative. And then we start working with the families. When children are removed from their parents generally, they go to court and they have a hearing, just as any kind of case, whether it's criminal or civil, it's dependency. So when children are removed from their parents get what's called a case plan, and they have 12 months to mitigate whatever reason that the children were removed from. As you heard the sheriff say, most of our children right now are being removed for substance abuse. Mainly over the last few years, it has been the heroin, fentanyl, and carfentanil. 3 years ago, before we started, or 2015, we had about 900 children in Sarasota, Manatee, and DeSoto. There was about 400 in Manatee County at the time, and there was 500 in Sarasota, and then there was about 100 in DeSoto. Right now, we have almost 1,000 children in Manatee County that we're serving right now. So, and that also includes, over the last 3 years, getting several hundred children out. So Manatee County is definitely by far our highest removal circuit, or highest removal county within our circuit. At the current time, we have about 600 children that are with their relatives or non-relatives, and we have about 400 children that are in what we call licensed foster care or in a group home. Due to the enormous removal rate, we used to, whenever you double and triple the number of children that are coming in, of course, our system did not have enough foster homes to meet the needs of the children. So we're continuously advocating for foster homes and for foster parents out in the community. Law enforcement has been a great partner. Some of the hospitals, there's been many agencies throughout Manatee County government that have worked with us on recruiting foster parents, because our foster homes, you can only have 2 children under the age of 2 in a foster home, or no more than 5 children in a foster home. The Sheriff's Office has removed several large sibling groups of 6, 7. We had 3 sibling groups of 8 that were removed last year, and we even had a sibling group of 9. So when a foster home can only hold 5 children, you're pretty much guaranteed that the children are going to be split up, which of course is the last thing that you want to happen whenever you're being removed from your parents and you've already lived a traumatic, chaotic life that most of the children that have been removed for. So we are always definitely advocating for foster homes and foster parents. So during the 12 months, we provide all the services to the parents and to the children. For the children, we meet all their medical, dental, scholastic needs. If they're with a relative or a non-relative, they do get funding through the state. They get what's called a caregiver stipend. Or if they're in foster care, foster parents get a stipend. Most people think some people do foster care for the money. $417 a month is not an amount of money that people can raise children on. So, but that's the amount that they get. Relatives get about $300 a month for each child, depending on the age. So during the 12 months, we provide the parents with like a case plan where they have to go to, they may have substance abuse treatment, they may have mental health evaluations, They may have to go through parenting classes, domestic violence classes, whatever their issues are. And our hope is always, our number one goal is to get children reunified with their parents. Of course, over the last couple of years, our reunification rate used to be around 80 to 85%. However, it has dramatically slowed down into the 70s over the last few years just because of the drug epidemic. We're finding a lot of our parents, they might get help, they might recover. However, part of recovery is relapse, so we've had multiple parents relapse. Of course, hopefully it's during the time while they still don't have their child. However, a lot of parents are very gung-ho and they get into treatment and they can get their children back within, 6 or 8 months. But unfortunately, sometimes they do relapse. We follow children for after they're reunified with their parents. We follow them for 6 months, just to still seeing them initially every week, and then as the parents are doing better and the family unit is coming back together, we generally see them twice a month, and then the last several months we'll go out once a month. So we keep cases open after they're reunified for anywhere from 6 months to a year, just to ensure the safety of the children. We also provide what we call diversion and prevention services. So if the sheriff's office receives an abuse report and the family just needs services, but it hasn't reached a level to where the children have to be removed, then we provide in-home therapy or in-home counseling, bus passes. We'll help families pay their, maybe their rent or water bills, or if they go out to the home. And we recently had to do a home that was deplorable. It had, the trailer had a hole in it. So, we'll do home repairs, we'll do pest controls. The main goal of all of us is not to remove children, because removing a child from their home is the most traumatic thing to ever do to a child. So our goal is really to keep all children in home and only remove if necessary. Other than that, it's not anything that we want to do at all. One of our recently, over this last year, due to the number of children that came in, our circuit has been for 3 consistent years in a row the highest removal of children in the entire state of Florida. Percentage-wise, 2 to 3 times the state average. And last year we had a month where our circuit actually removed more children than Miami-Dade. If that kind of, we had 108 children. 109. Miami was 108. We generally used to remove about 30 to 35 children a year before 2015. And then it started, a month, 30 children a month. And then we've had several months over the last couple of years that there's been between 90, 100, 105 children removed in 1 month. So it's definitely the opiates and the drugs that has increased it. And we're now, Manatee County started the highest removals, and then now we're seeing it start into Sarasota County. So the last 6 to 8 months, we've seen the same heroin, fentanyl, and overdoses hitting Sarasota County as well. DeSoto sees a little bit, but not as much. It's a lot smaller. Okay, my time. Just in closing, we recently have done a lot of partnerships with some private foundations. We're also working with Sarasota County and Manatee County government on a project called Early Childhood Court, and it's basically for the babies in the community, because we really need to have permanency for the babies that are coming into our system. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Slater. Don't mean to be so informal. Did you all hear that? 1,000 kids in our county are in some sort of care. My daughter goes to an elementary school. I don't think there's 1,000 kids in her entire elementary school. So it's a huge need. At this point now, Becky Canese is going to come up from Just for Girls and talk about some of the issues that we're seeing. We talked about the parents and the removal issues. Now we're going to talk about actually some of the drug problems that the kids themselves are having. Because, with the pill crisis, obviously, the parents had it in the cupboard. It was easy to get. Now the heroin. Folks, if you don't think that teenage kids can walk down a hallway and get whatever they want, you're living in a fantasy land. It's out there and it's available. It's not like when a bunch of us were younger and you might have known someone that had smoked some marijuana. You might have known someone that had tried some. That's not how it is these days. So Becky, and I apologize to get off on that ramp. Becky is the CEO of Just for Girls, which holds 4 drug prevention licenses at each of its leadership and learning centers and alternative education program, and has been recognized with state and national outstanding program awards, including the U.S. Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, the U.S. Department of Education Drug-Free Communities and Schools Recognition Program, Florida Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support Model Schools Award, Florida Department of Children and Families, and Florida Alcohol and Drug Abuse Association Governor's Best Practices Award, and Tampa Bay Business Journal Children's Services Nonprofit over the year. Church Women United, through its United Nations office, presented Mrs. Knies with its Human Rights Award for her leadership and service as a mentor and social activist in human rights and human development. She is the founding chairman of the Mayor's Drug-Free Communities Committee and is an alumnus of Leadership Manatee and Leadership Tampa Bay. She was one of the principal planners that established Manatee County's successful Children's Services referendum, realizing profound change and progress for children, including expanded child care, shelters, crisis stabilization, family strengthening, health, education, and prevention programs. Mrs. Knies also serves as the executive director of the Manatee County Girls Club Foundation to help develop a sustainable future for those prevention education programs aimed at helping girls and young women achieve their full potential. Please join me in welcoming Becky Knies.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate the Tiger Bay Club's invitation to speak to you all today. And in listening to Sheriff Wells and Brena Slater's comments about this issue, kids in crisis, it's very heartbreaking. But I'm here to assure you that it's not hopeless. In prevention, we have an opportunity to get ahead of these concerns in a more effective way than treatment and incarceration. We've come a long way with prevention over the years. Some of you might remember where we started, which was just information sharing. Do you remember the ads on TV where they had an egg and they cracked it? They said, "This is your brain." And they cracked it into a frying pan and took a picture of it frying and said, "This is your brain on drugs." That was the beginning of information sharing in an attempt to prevent drug and alcohol abuse. After that, they moved into alternatives. Alternatives are recreational and sports programs in community centers, and the mission of some of those organizations was to beat the streets. That if these kids were in these community centers, they weren't out getting in trouble. And then they all realized this is very limited in its effectiveness. You can't be with them 24/7. Even the boot camps that were established realized that once these children were released, they were on their way and on their own, and anything can happen if they're not adequately prepared. So then still, many, many years ago, you might remember Nancy Reagan's Just Say No. They moved from information on alternatives into resistance skills education, and they started to teach children how to resist peer pressure. The drug abuse resistance education, DARE, was implemented at police and cities all around the country. And since then, they've even become aware of the limited effectiveness of that narrow approach. And they have expanded, as we all have now, in developing a more comprehensive approach to prevention that looks at this issue, drug abuse, as more of a symptom, not the problem. The problems lie in all these ancillary issues that are described as risk factors by the researchers. Search Institute conducted a long-term study and identified a number of risk factors that are leading these children into poor, unhealthy decisions like using and abusing drugs. They also identified protective factors that help prevent these children from making unhealthy choices. It can involve drugs, it can involve early sexual promiscuity, it can involve crime, all sorts of things, even suicide. We have learned how to approach education and prevention with a more comprehensive manner. And one of the things that we have done in being recognized with all of those awards is being published by the U.S. Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. They publish books describing what we're doing at Just for Girls and others that receive awards year after year. And we share the methods that we've been using in our approach towards success. We can measure before we start, in the middle of the program, and at the end of the program. And year after year, we can prove evidence of lowering risk factors and strengthening protective factors. And I've been at Just for Girls now for 30 years, and I can tell you year after year, we see students come through with similar stories that you'll hear today of great success, and it gives us all a lot of hope. And when we consider effectiveness, for the policymakers, we also need to consider efficiency. Prevention is more effective than treatment and incarceration, and it is a lot less expensive. Treatment and incarceration is less effective and a lot more expensive. Researchers have shown that for every dollar invested in quality prevention programs, a savings of $10 and more is realized, and most of that is in costs for incarceration. And much of what you see in incarceration is a wasted life, and in many cases, as you're hearing here today also, is a lost life. And those costs are immeasurable and beyond any financial planning that can even be considered. If we save one life, what we're doing is worth it. And what we want to do is continue to share the good information, which Tiger Bay Club is allowing me to do here today, and METV on the televised report of this meeting, so we can get the word out and help you understand that there is hope. We collaborate with a number of different organizations. Just for Girls collaborates with the school district, also with Manatee County. I was at a meeting of the Children's Services Advisory Board last night, and the statistics in Florida are not good. They're sliding and getting worse. The indicators for Manatee County, because of some of what we're doing here locally on a small scale that could be even larger, is actually improving. Manatee County is a shining star nationwide and also statewide. The youth substance abuse was put on the ballot more than 10 years ago. And the local county commissioners at that time, after 5 years of that tax initiative being approved by the voters, who agreed to tax themselves to help prevent children from falling prey to drug abuse. After 5 years, the county commission allowed that to sunset. And I've been in front of the commissioners repeatedly to ask them to restore that. And I think you can all see now we can understand that it was predictable. If we don't do more in prevention, we're going to spend so much more in law enforcement, incarceration, treatment, therapy, and it's not as effective. If you get a generation of children growing up healthy and away from these addictive behaviors, especially girls, girls are the fastest growing segment of the juvenile justice system. And they are the future mothers who will impart their values to the next generation. And you have this perpetual benefit. If we can turn around the lives of these girls, they will then benefit the children that come behind them. So I would encourage all of you I would challenge all of you to get involved as an advocate and in policy making. Talk to our local leaders, especially our county commission. They're in budget hearings right now. Ask them to restore that youth substance abuse tax initiative that was passed by the voters. It's only 1/8 of a mil. It won't be too significant for the individual taxpayer, but it'll be significant for the children, our community, and our economy in future costs down the road being saved by implementing good quality prevention programs now. There is hope.
Thank you very much, Becky, for sharing that with us. At the end, I'm going to ask if you guys can share some information about how to contact you guys and so forth. Our next speakers are going to talk as a team, Abby McCrum and Danielle Aleck. Both Abby and her mother will share their experiences and hard-won success from their firsthand account. We thank Danielle for her willingness to share their story so that others can benefit. And we thank Abby for her courage and commitment to helping others by sharing her personal journey and triumph. And as I want to do as a practicing attorney for many years, handling a lot of criminal defense cases, I know firsthand the number of families that are dealing with these issues. These issues of addiction, drug use, they know no boundaries. Race, gender, socioeconomic status, it doesn't matter. I have sat with families from all parts of this county who are going through this. It's everywhere. In fact, we won't do it, but I would imagine a great number of people in here could raise their hands because they have gone through it or they know family members or friends that have gone through this. So for Danielle and Abby to have the strength and courage and conviction to come in and share their stories to help other people understand and learn and have hope for what the future could bring, I applaud them. So join me in welcoming Danielle and Abby.
Is this good? Can everyone hear me? All right, so this is my story, but it's written in a little bit of a child's story format. Once upon a time, there was a young princess who lived in a white castle with a red roof, and this princess was driven. She treasured every opportunity to learn something new. Her first day of school was just a day away. She could barely sleep. She woke up at the crack of dawn when only the mice would roam. She'd quickly get dressed into her uniform, and when it was time, her father would bring her to school. The ride was almost unbearable. She'd wish she could just fly there. School ended up being wonderful. It continued to be this way for first and second grade. But in third grade, the princess discovered something. She discovered a monster living in her house, and everything went downhill from there. The monster tormented her. She knew he would always be watching. She was terrified. She saw pure evil in his eyes, his mind, his heart. This monster became so cruel that he drove her to the edge of the cliff. That cliff was her sanity. And what did the monster do? With a smile upon his crooked face, he threw the princess off the ledge and laughed as she fell. The monster wove a mask for her to wear. She was not to take it off. That mask had the face that she donned on her first day of school. The mask looked so realistic that no one knew it was even there. But on some nights, when she was alone, the princess would pry the mask off her face and gaze into the mirror. She was fading away. Her eyes, which used to have life into them, resembled broken glass. She asked for help to defeat the monster. Her father, her protector, was so persuaded by the mask that he didn't believe her. The grip the monster held on her was too strong, so she climbed up her tower all the way to the top. She thought that there was only one way to make the monster let go. She knew something wasn't right in this fairy tale. She knew her prince wouldn't come to save her. So she decided to end her story early, and she jumped. She broke when she hit the ground, even more so than before. But this wouldn't be the last of her attempts at ending her story. It was only the first of many, many attempts. She became more broken with each leap, and she tried to heal herself with magical potions. Some she smoked, some she consumed. They didn't help her heal, they only made her worse. She was in 7th grade when everything caught up to her. A new character arrived, and it was the princess's mother. The mother helped pry each and every screw out of the mask and off her face. It was painful at some points. The princess wanted to end the story early again. Still, she was broken from her jumps off the tower and was ill from the tainted potions, but with her mother, she began to heal.
Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a princess who was the sweetest princess who ever lived. She was smart and she was kind, and she had a loving family and 2 homes to live in. At her mother's house, her room was painted pink. She had a tiny little bed, and on the shelves above her dresser, she raised cactus. Her mother was poor, but she did not care, and it was a safe and quiet space where she knew no fear. At her father's house, she had a big bed, lots of books, and a computer to play games on. And there was a monster, and this monster wore a human face, and he looked just like you and me. And he was very sneaky, this monster, and told the little girl that if she ever told anyone his secrets, something horrible would happen. So she never told a soul. And it ate her up inside, and it ate until she thought she would die. She tried pot, but that didn't do anything. And she tried alcohol, but that didn't help either. And when nothing she tried worked, she decided it would be better if she were to die. And one day when she was 11 years old, she tried to kill herself. And though everyone asked her why she was so sad, she did not tell the monster's secrets. She was very, very afraid. And to save the life of the princess, the poor mother took her child far away to the land of Bradenton. And there the mother... Thank you. And there the mother sought the wisdom of a wise old woman we called Grandma. And now years ago, Grandma had worked with the local authorities on the mayor's drug-free initiative. And in doing that work, she met many people, and among them was one woman named Dee Ralph, who was the principal of a school called Just for Girls. The very first week in her new city, the sad little princess was entered into Just for Girls as a new student, and she began intensive therapy through Manatee Glens, now called Centerstone. Now, as you have already guessed, the princess is Annabelle, and the difference between the happy little girl on her first day of school and the young lady who went to Just for Girls was like 2 different human beings. She was catastrophically thin from anorexia, she was gaunt and drawn from lack of sleep, and she was completely unable to engage in life. Gone was her love for learning. Gone was the engaging and charismatic child who loved to talk and meet new people and hear new stories. She simply no longer existed. We began the long, hard work of rebuilding her, of creating a safe space where she could move away from the trauma of her childhood and choose to define the events of her life, rather than letting those events define her. Primary among the things that we needed to do was put in the void created by her traumas a new skill set, because nature abhors a vacuum. And at her age, drugs and alcohol would be more than happy to fill that space. Self-destructive tendencies are common, and I wanted her to live a life that would be uncommon. This did not come quickly, and it did not come easily, and I wish that I could take some kind of credit for it, but I can't, because it's not about the choices that she makes now when I am there. It's about the choices that she makes when I am not there, when it is her friends at school who are offering her drugs. It is when she is going out with them and is being offered alcohol. It is spending time with them at the mall and they're smoking cigarettes. She chooses now not to do those things. She learned to respect her body and her mind because she was given the time and space in which to learn how to make good choices for herself. She is a witness to surviving a nightmare and becoming stronger because of it. And that is why early intervention and prevention works. It provides hope when it seems as if all hope is gone. Thank you.
Thank you both very, very much for sharing that. You know, it helps understand sometimes we look at people who are using drugs and we think, oh, they're just a pillhead or they're a drug addict. But substance abuse happens for many reasons. Peer pressure, acceptance, but it also, people use it to cover pain and emotions. So getting to the root of the cause is, as Becky said, and it's been pointed out, is extremely important. Not just the punishment, not just the treatment, but trying to get it before it even starts. Before we open it up to questions, I would like to ask if Brena and Becky can just give some information about your organizations, how people could contact you, websites, phone numbers, how they can get involved and help out.
So our website you can go on is the safechildrencoalition.org, or you can go to the Sarasota YMCA.org. Both of those have all of our information for the how to become a foster parent. We do have clothing closets in both Sarasota and Manatee County. We accept donations, and for diapers, socks, underwear, any kind of gently used or new clothing at both of our offices. The one in Manatee is right down on State Road 64, and our website has everything else on it. Thanks.
Our website at Just for Girls is www.justforgirls.org. We also have a Facebook page, Just for Girls Manatee. Our number locally is 941-747-5757. I left annual reports at each of your seats. Feel free to take extras back with you to your workplace, in your community, in your neighborhood, in your church. There are more annual reports at the table going out. We are hoping to have all of you spread the good news that there is hope available, and working together we can create a brighter future.
Thank you, and I just confirmed with Ms. Slater, also, if you're at Publix or CVS, pick up a couple extra tubes of toothpaste or some toothbrushes, deodorant, razors, all that kind of stuff. If a child, even a teenage child, is removed from the home, they're going to need that kind of stuff. So pick up a couple extra things, grab an extra bag, and drop it off down at their office on 64. All right, we're going to open it up to questions. So please step on up. If you are a Tiger Bay member, we would love to have you step up and ask questions of any of our panel members. Specific to their particular area, or questions about the future, their programs. Please come on up to the microphone, give us your name and that you're a Tiger Bay member and who you're going to ask the question to. And until we get one, obviously I always have questions. Becky, my first question would be to you is, you're winning all these awards, you've got these programs that have demonstrable success, even with recidivism and relapse and all that. What would it take to take your programs and replicate those to, you got Just for Girls, but other areas in our county and elsewhere?
Thank you, Matt, for that question. We have a campaign going on right now called Smart Growth Initiatives. These issues are growing, and we need to have the financial resources grow as well. And we don't go into these campaigns very often, but when we do, we can build buildings very efficiently and grow the number of children that we can serve. Our campaign goal right now is $5 million, and we hope to be able to build a 27,000 square foot building in West Bradenton, where we have a building there now serving as an alternative education program during the day, and that's similar to what Abby went through with us. And then it also has before and after school programs, so from 6 in the morning until 6 at night, it'll be in use. We also share our buildings as a community resource, and we have been in touch with the Red Cross and Manatee County Emergency Management to share our resources. And that new facility would be able to be built as a hardened facility and shared as a shelter for first responders and as a shelter for families that were displaced from the storm post-disaster. So those are things that we can use right now. The Youth Substance Abuse Initiative, if passed, would help us expand programming right away. And it would also help us expand the outreach that we're doing to help teach other organizations in the community how to do what we do. Just for Girls was the first licensed drug and alcohol prevention provider in Manatee County, and we were tapped to help other community organizations improve their standards and compliance to become licensed as well. And then just if I could take this, I thought too it'd be helpful for the community here to know that there will be scrolling on the televised coverage, a number that's very important for all of you to consider and write down. It's called SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. They have a hotline, and they also, for suicide prevention, they also have a hotline for drug and alcohol abuse treatment and counseling. Those numbers will be scrolling on METV afterwards, and if you don't see that, you can look up SAMHSA.com, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration.com, SAMHSA. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Kay Whyte, a Tiger Bay member. I'd like to thank Danielle and Abby for sharing their story with us. It was interesting, Becky, you talked about hope and the progress that's being made, but Sheriff Wells talked about how Manatee County in this area is the worst in the state, and the drug abuse is increasing. What is it about this area that is causing it to be worse? What is happening here that is leading to this increase in drug abuse in all its forms?
That really has been the million-dollar question that we have all asked ourselves. I can only really go back and attribute it to the pill mills and the amount of people that we had addicted to opioids, and then that decline in resources that they had to continue with OxyContin and the other opioids. The heroin, I have a lot of contacts throughout the nation, and I know that heroin hit Naperville, Illinois, about 2.5 years ago, a location that you would never believe heroin would be. But it was there, and it has worked its way throughout this nation. I think that when you heard Brena speak, Sarasota now is really starting to feel the impact of heroin and fentanyl. So we have searched, talked to experts. We really have no idea why we got hit so hard, other than just that addiction to opioids that was suddenly taken away from them. Thank you.
There's a lot going on when it comes to drug abuse and addiction, but I think that, in my opinion, there is a shift in priorities regarding where the funding is going. There are policies that are made relating to our finances as a community and a county, and when the Youth Substance Abuse Initiative was approved by the voters and then allowed to sunset by the commissioners at that time, you could see this apathy about this age and getting ahead of this problem. In government, you have reactive leaders and you have proactive leaders. I will tell you, the county commission we have now is very proactive. And if they would get on this youth substance abuse initiative and prioritize funding for youth substance abuse prevention, it would make a world of difference. And I think it has a relationship as to what happened when we saw the movement in the trends. There was a study done about meth. When I was approaching the commissioners maybe 10 years ago, there was information that I shared with them that there are gangs in California where meth was very pronounced, and they were tracking the use of meth, which is highly addictive, as it moved east across the country, and they tracked it down to the I-4 corridor at the point that I was alerting our county commission that there's no time to waste. And I think the commission has a tough decision on, we need emergency services, we need law enforcement, they had health services at that time, and this was a lower priority because it's prevention. But now that we know it's so much less expensive and so much more effective, that I think is related to what's happening here and what we can do to improve it.
Misha.
My name is Misha Wilson. I'm a Tiger Bay member. Brena, I had a question for you regarding foster care, being a foster care parent. What are the biggest misconceptions that people say, I couldn't do it because it takes too much time, or I'm a single parent, or I work full time, or something like that? What are those obstacles that are keeping people from even moving forward to looking into it.
Right, and Matt had just asked me to speak about that. So to be a foster parent, you can be any age in good physical health. We do have foster parents that are in their 70s, and we have foster parents that are in their 20s. You can be single, married, straight, gay, any race, any, pretty much anything. You can rent, you can own. You just have to be financially sound enough to be able to take care of yourself. We do a budget sheet with you, and if you can meet your bills, then you can be a foster parent. Like I said, foster parenting, you don't make much money off of. It's $400 or $500 a month for a child. It is not that much, but we do pay all the medical bills, dental bills, doctor bills. The children have Medicaid, so that's all covered. And then any kind of speech therapy, occupational therapy, any kind of needs that the children have. To be a foster parent, there's an orientation you can go to, and they tell you more about it and all that information. Our next one's on our website. And then you go to a class. Sometimes they're during the week, we have them in the evenings, or they have where they condense them on the weekends for people who work during the weekdays. You can work. We provide daycare for you and the children, and after-school care. If the child's school age, then you also can get after-school care. Any other question about that? Okay.
Pat Benson, Tiger Bay. This is for Brena also. Where does Safe Coalition get most of their funding? Is that through the Y or government agencies?
It's through the Department of Children and Families. All of our funding is through the
Okay.
Department of Children and Families. We receive about $28 million a year all through Department of Children and Families. About $7.5 million of that is paid straight to adoptions. I didn't finish talking about adoptions, but when children are adopted, parents get a stipend as well, about $400 to up to, a couple thousand, depending on the needs of the children, because sometimes, we have children that are actually in nursing homes that are, they might be blind, deaf, brain dead, whatever. So we have some children that need 24-hour medical care or nursing care, so they get more, but adoptive parents get about $500 a month, give or take.
Yeah.
So $7.5 million to adoptive parents. We used to spend about $3.5 million on beds until 3 years ago. We now spend $7.5 million on beds just to have a bed for a child to sleep in. Some kids we pay up to $400 to $500 a day. For some of our teens that have mental health and substance abuse issues, we have to pay that. And then the rest is for case management. We contract case management. We pay for all the diversion services. So all of it's through Department of Children and Families. Till this year, we just did we're doing some small grants.
Okay, the $28 million is for Sarasota, Manatee, and
In DeSoto, yes, ma'am.
okay.
And we're we are actually this year, we are the most underfunded circuit in the entire state. So we're $5.5 million under the statewide average, just because of the number of children that have come into our system. So we still get the same amount of money we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, with twice the number of
Can
kids.
I ask a second question?
Yeah, sure.
How many caseload per person through your agency?
Well, it depends on the experience of the case manager. We contract out the case management services. We have about 200 staff that are contracted out, about 89 of them being case managers, and then there's supervisors, there's transporters. They carry anywhere from, we count by children.
Right.
If you're not certified, it takes about 9 months to become certified. When you're out of training, you can only carry 10 children at the max, which could be 2 to 4 families, or sometimes, if it's a single child and more. Some of our case managers that are more experienced, or some of our Spanish case managers that have large families, sibling groups of 7 and 8, they could possibly carry up to 35 children, 30 to 35. We don't like them carrying that many, but with the number of children, it's...
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we have a few more minutes. We have 2 more questions.
My name is Gail Hanna, and I will be a member of Tiger Bay Club. My questions, I have 2, are for Chef Rick Wells. Sheriff Wells, I want to thank you for coming here today. My first question is, what are we doing to get rid of these drug traffickers? They are killing our population. I have 3 friends who lost their children in the past 24 months to drug overdoses. And guess how old they were? They weren't children. They were late 30s. It has got to stop. I'm tired of having our county be Miami-Dade. And Brenda just mentioned something else about the children. Are you doing anything? Is anything working? And my second question is, what as individuals can we do? Is it a matter of funding? Can we help you with funding? What can we do to get rid of these drug traffickers?
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the question. We have 141 federal indictments in there right now. We're doing a lot. You have to understand, when it comes to selling drugs in this community, you can cut the snake off of the head, but 5 more are going to pop up. So we have made a significant amount of arrests, and they're all drug traffickers. The problem is fentanyl is easy to get. We're not talking about crack cocaine here. We're not talking about marijuana. We're not talking about any type of substance that you and I may have dealt with in the past. We're talking about something that you can, at one time, you could get over the internet. So we have changed the Florida statutes when it comes to fentanyl. When this began, fentanyl is a controlled substance. Carfentanil is a controlled substance. That means that it had no minimum mandatory penalties. It was a $1,500 bond to get out of jail. The penalty itself was not like that of heroin or cocaine in regards to trafficking. So we got that law changed this year. That'll go into effect October 1st. So it will mirror that of heroin. So if you have 4 grams of heroin, it's trafficking. Now, if you have 4 grams of fentanyl, that will be trafficking. So understand this. You're putting drug dealers in jail, and they're getting out on a $1,500 bond, and they go back into our community to continue that. So this is going to at least give us more teeth in the law itself to keep them in jail where they belong. I have absolutely no sympathy for them whatsoever. They're killing people and they know it. So we have, currently we're working with the FBI, ATF, all federal, local, and state agencies are working together to put them away for a long time. We do a lot of federal indictments because that's where they get the most time. So if they're trafficking, they're going to go to Tampa. And that's where they're going to stay until they serve their time. So we continue. I'm very proud of the work the men and women of the Sheriff's Office have done. That's why you're seeing a small decrease right now. That's why we had 1 overdose in the month of August instead of 325. So I do believe that all of us together, I do believe we're starting to see an impact. As individuals, it's all about educating your families. It's about talking to your kids. I mean, this has always been, in my opinion, a three-pronged approach: education, treatment, and enforcement on the end. But we have to educate and talk to our children about what's going on out there. We can look at deer, maybe it made a difference, maybe it didn't, but we had an educational component, and families talked to each other about what was going on. That's not happening. I tell you what we need more of, we need more foster parents. That's what we need. Okay? Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, Dr. Lawrence Miller, Tiger Bay member with Gamma Xi Boulay. My question is for Sheriff Wells again, in terms of your statement about not being able to arrest your way out of it, because it's not only the drug dealers, it's also the people who buy drugs. And that's where we, in terms of talking about the family, can go ahead and have an impact in working with our schools and churches and what have you. But I wanted to ask you about, as far as recidivism, as it relates to those who come to your jails who are not drug dealers, but are the people who are buying drugs from the drug dealers, and what happens with them. And then the other question I have is for Becky, revolving around, I hear from you that you get success as far as dealing with prevention is concerned. The money is taken away once you've been successful, and now you're back asking for money once again from a source that will be temporary, I understand, in terms of sunsetting. Maybe it might be better if it was inculcated in the budget of Manatee County permanently, as far as being able to have the funds to address drug prevention. But you could speak more to that.
Thank you, sir. The recidivism for those addicted to drugs, all levels, is high because they can't work and they really have no source of income. So they usually have to steal to get the money needed to supply their habit. So last January, I felt as a sheriff, it's my responsibility not just to house inmates, but to try to help them in any way that I could with vocational programs. But in regards to those that are addicted, we opened up 2 recovery pods. And I brought in faith-based and I brought in the Salvation Army, and we tried to counsel. We try to start the 12-step program with them. We try to do what we can to get them past this addiction and to the road of recovery. And when they are released, we try to continue that treatment and get them to a treatment facility. So that's really, we're not a treatment facility, but we have tried. We're trying to become one. We're trying to do what we can to get them in a position where they can, be productive again. Because I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, fentanyl is a very difficult drug to beat. It grabs a hold of you like something I've never seen before. It's hard to get off of it, and it is destroying families. I think all of us have probably known someone that has been affected by it, and we're not going to give up. Together, we will continue to fight. But my main focus is to help those that are suffering and try to do what we can for them and their families. Thank y'all.
The Youth Substance Abuse Initiative was approved by the voters, and it was written in such a way that the county commission could not touch it for 5 years. And then after that, the county commissioners had the authority to allow it to sunset or not. And they allowed that to sunset at some point. I'm not sure if it was exactly on year 5. It happened quietly at one of their meetings. It was a vote that was taken. One of the county attorneys, there are a few of us advocates that watch as much as we can. We're not there all the time. And the county attorney at that time, who's no longer with the county anymore, said to us, where were the voices? And we missed it. And now that we know, we've been expressing our voice, and we need more of you to express your voice. The county commissioners now have the authority to restore a youth substance abuse similar to that at 1/8 mil, or that one with the same criteria. And it could be permanent. It could be an ongoing. It's up to the commissioners to do that with their budget. And it would absolutely be necessary for us to get ahead of the curve on this issue. You really have to get ahead of it. We will never out-arrest. We will never be able to spend enough the way we're spending now on incarceration and ever see a dent in this issue going away until we invest at the front end with youth, prevention, education, and intervention.
All right. Thank you very much for being here today. As you know, every month we have the Tiger by the Tail, which is the best question, the most thoughtful question, generates good discussion. And I'm sorry, we just met Dr. Lawrence? I'm sorry?
Lawrence Miller.
Dr. Miller. I want to give this to Dr. Miller, not only for his question about what can be done, but also I appreciated, keeping with the theme, his forceful suggestion that drug prevention funding needs to be permanently enshrined in the county commission's budget. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I did need to announce, there was a lost and found. There was a pair of gold small loop earrings that were found at the August 17th luncheon at Kiwanis Hall. If those belong to anybody, please see Elaine. Thank you again to our speakers. I truly appreciate you being here and not only sharing all of the information, answering the questions, but sharing a story that is very personal, and I'm surprised I was able to stand up and continue talking. So thank you very much for coming and talking with us. As always, I want to thank the board. I want to thank the programming committee for putting together another fantastic panel and a timely program. Thank you to METV, as always, for being here and recording us and getting me on my good side. Our next luncheon is October 19th. Don't have a theme yet, but we will have one very soon. It should be a good one, so please keep an eye out for your email. And to finish up, we're not saying everybody has to become foster parents. You have to open your house to 9 siblings and so forth, but we're all blessed in certain ways. We've all been touched by this in certain ways. So little things count. Like I said, when next time you're at Publix or CVS and you're picking up some personal items, just spend $20 and grab some extra and drop it off. These kids need it. They're coming out of an incredibly difficult situation and moving into the unknown, which can be very scary, and they need things. So please continue to support them. Thank you again to our speakers, and we will see you next month.